right, Clayton Bailey here with the How to Buy a Home In podcast, and today we are in West Plano, and if you don't know the premise of the show, we have a real estate professional. So we've got boots on the ground. This is a gal that works this neighborhood. And then we've got somebody that works in the real estate industry as a service provider. And today we've got a lender here, so thank you. And then we've got a service person, boots on the ground. So we've got Andrea Miller with Keller Williams and Chad Stansell with Cardinal Financial and Daniel Goforth with DrainBusters. So Andrea is our local, hyper-local real estate professional who really knows West Plano, knows the area. And so we're really going to dig deep into that specifically and the area specifically. But first, we're going to get to know her just a little bit. And then we're going to boot it over to Chad, and we're going to talk about mortgage rates because that's what everybody asks you every day. I'm sure your 7-year-old or your kids ask you, like, hey, Daddy, how's the interest rate today? My teacher wants to know.
No kidding.
Popular question.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right?
You're going to be the most popular one on the show.
That's fine.
And then we've got Daniel Goforth with DrainBusters. Excuse me.
Say that 3 times.
Right? DrainBusters. So, and you probably see some very interesting things. So I'm excited to have you here, and we're going to get into some really deep, dark stories. So, not too dark. It is a PG show. So we've got
no problem. We'll keep it PG.
We got to keep it PG somewhat.
PG. Somewhat.
So we're here at Meso Comida. And so West Park Boulevard in Preston, and we're going to show some pictures of some amazing food, just an awesome restaurant. So we'll show you that here in just a second. But first, let's just dive right in with Andrea. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in real estate.
Okay.
And yeah, are you local native Texan?
I am. So I actually started in real estate. This is my 7th year.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was in corporate telecommunications for about 10 years. And I started Andrea Miller Group with Keller Williams. And my husband and I both are native Texans. And we built our first home in West Plano here in 1996. And we've been here ever since.
Wow.
I know.
And kids?
2 kids went through the Plano school system, graduated at Plano West, and we have one that is a freshman at University of Arkansas Business, and we have a sophomore engineering at A&M. So I can say the schools here are good.
All right, awesome, because you know firsthand, and you built your house here. So
we did, 1996.
Okay. Wow, yeah. That's awesome.
When there was nothing here. Like West Plano, people were like, what's Plano? We're like, oh, maybe we should go there. And here we are.
And now it's there. So, and I have a question, and we'll get into it in the last segment, but there's a question that's always burned me up about this area, and I've got to ask it at the end. So,
okay.
But so just a couple things before we dive into this market. How important is a good realtor?
It's the most important thing. More than ever, because you really have to have somebody who knows what they're doing in this market. And if you have somebody who doesn't have experience, I mean, it's your largest asset that you're looking to either sell or buy. So you have to have somebody that knows how to do that. So it's very important.
All right, awesome. And then what makes you different?
Well,
what makes you unique with like when you sit down with buyers or you sit down with sellers, do you have a different approach that you think kind of gives you an edge over other agents?
Well, yes. I mean, I think experience, number one, and that just comes with time, being in the industry, doing a lot of transactions, doing a lot of volume, having great partners. That's really important in this market, to have somebody on your side. And we don't really, all of our business is all referral. So it's either referral, past client. So we don't just go out and try and find business from Zillow or different things. We really focus on the client needs. And I think so many agents out there these days, they're just transaction. It's just sell me this one, go to the next one. And I think that's really what makes us different.
Yeah, I in doing this podcast, I always hear from different agents on how they feel, and it's that physical touch and getting to know that person. And for you, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you got to get financially naked, with people. And so it's like, I know this is on your record and I've got to talk to you about this, but it's the same thing with you, as an agent. You got to figure out what are they looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you have to find their motivation, right? Like anybody could buy or sell a house, but you have to really find out what is the motivation for that, right? And you have to guide them through that process, because it's a lot of money that you're talking about. I mean, it's your largest financial decision that you're probably going to make.
Yeah. So just talking about this market specifically, and all of us have things to say about this market specifically, but what kind of advice do you have, or what do you think, sellers should know about this market?
You should sell. If you want to sell, it's still a great market. I mean, we have the luxury of having the last 3 years of home appreciations like we've never seen before. So many sellers are sitting on a lot of equity, right? So why not take that equity that you've built up for the past 3 years? Because it may not always be there.
Yeah.
I mean, the market could go down like in 12 months, and that equity that you've built has started to go away. So don't be scared about it. Take that equity, go up, build something up, or take that equity and downsize. Like if you want to go be closer to your family or your kids or wherever it may be, don't be scared. Take that equity and do it.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. You want to know what is somebody's why. What is their reason for wanting to do something and saying, hey, it's now is the time. I think in the last 2 to 3 years, I think agents were saying, hey, you might kind of want to sit out for a second because it's getting crazy tough.
Yeah.
It's just getting,
and
unless you got an extra $100,000 just lying around, it's like you weren't really able to do much. And now it's like, no, now's the time. And so for everybody
people
that's
need to get over the fear, right? Get over the fear. Like you have to, what is the fear they have for not selling or not buying, right? And you have to really peel that onion back and find out. And most people, once you do that and they see it, okay, this does make sense for me. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe you lay it out and maybe it's 12 months from now, right? You don't know.
So is that a question that you ask, like when you're trying to get, what's the biggest thing that you're afraid of, or
we ask them. I mean, usually, the first question we have when we sit down with somebody is like, tell us why we're here. Like, obviously you had a reason to reach out to us. Like, why are we here? What are you trying to do? How can we help you get there, right? What does that look like? Do you want to be, I have a client now that wants to move to Austin because her daughter just had a baby.
Yeah.
She wants to be part of her life.
Absolutely.
So we sit down like, does it make sense, right? And we ran the numbers and we got an agent on the other side to help them. So you really have to find out what is their motivation.
Yeah. And so taking that into consideration, so how important is it to have good vendors in relationships?
If you listen to nothing else here, listen to this. It is the most important thing, right? It is so critical. And we have built our relationships over years. It doesn't happen overnight. Like having great vendors can either make or break the deal, right? So for our clients, like we know we have everybody lined up. You need a plumber, we got your guy. You need a lender, we got your guy. Because as you all know, not everybody is the same, right? Like there's good and bad. And you can't afford not to have a good vendor, right? And so you vet them out and you work with them and you support each other. And it's so important. And so many agents don't have those relationships. They just call any lender or any plumber. And it's critical because those are parts of the transaction, right? Like you have to have a home inspection. You have to have a lender. You may have plumbing issues. You need to have a roofer, right? So we have them at every step of the process.
And I feel like that's... you're absolutely right. That's a big thing that some people overlook, because if you're like a new agent or you're not really from the area or whatever, you're really relying on, hey, my uncle's got a friend. It's like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're kind of going to your dad, who do you know for this? You're like, well, I've always used this person, right? So if you've got a good agent, right, they have that network built in. So like I know,
and it doesn't happen overnight.
No,
we have, my first year in, I didn't have those great relationships, right? Maybe my second year got a little bit better. By my 7th year, I know, like, okay, they're good, they're good. Not good, right? So
and
it just takes time.
And we always try to, as inspectors, because we're looking at everything, and then they always say, well, who do you have for a foundation or plumber? I'm like, that's what your agent is there for, and really lean on them, because they have those built-in relationships where, if the S hits the fan and you got and it's fourth quarter and you need a Hail Mary, I could probably throw you somebody, but I would rather you lean on your agent to sort of, because she has the experience base with that vendor to kind of help out.
Well, and like I call these guys, even if they're not involved in the deal and I run into something that I'm like, hey, Chad, does this sound right? If it's on the other side of it. So we've called you a lot too.
So speaking of tricky situations, so what are some tricky situations that have required your expertise?
Okay, so I really have to tell you that every part of the transaction is tricky. And what I mean by that is it starts from the beginning, right? Because everybody thinks, I'm going to buy and sell a house. It's just I'm going to sign it and we're going to get it done. At every step, there's something that comes up, right? So when you get the offer, right, you have to vet the lender. You have to vet the agent. That can be tricky. Is the pre-qual really a pre-qual? Then you get to negotiations. Oh, well, then you may have a roof that needs to be done. So every part of it is very tricky. All of it's tricky. So you just have to work through every part of that.
Yeah, I feel like every little step of the way, you know, the little Monopoly or Candyland, right? You're like, oh, you got to take 3 steps back or 5 steps forward, right? You're always rolling the dice and like, wow, here we go. But if you got the good team, it makes you stronger, right?
But it's all tricky. It really is. I mean, it's not a cut and dry transaction like so many people think, right? It's really not.
So, and then I want to ask the last question for this segment is, what's your craziest story in real estate?
Okay, this is really crazy. I should write a book on. I have a lot of crazy, so like narrowing it down to one was really hard. Actually, I should write a book about that. Maybe I'll not be a realtor and write a book. Okay, so I'll try to make it really short, but so I had some clients that we were looking at new construction, and so we called the builder. They met us out. There was a beautiful house. We put our hard hats on. We go in. They're still working on the house. The workers are in there. We're walking through, and we go into the master bedroom, and one of the workers was saying, he's speaking in Spanish. None of us could speak Spanish, which we should have, but we didn't know it. And he kept saying a word, and I was like, whatever. He's not talking to me. So I walk into the master bathroom, and I am confronted from here to you with a skunk. A skunk with his tail up.
Oh, no.
Seriously. I stood there. Oh, my God, there's a skunk. And so I backed my way out of it. And we looked at him, and he was saying skunk. That's what he was trying to tell us. Skunk.
Do you remember what the word was in Spanish?
No, but I need to look it up. You'd think I would remember that. Darn.
Oh, my gosh.
That's only one. I have many, but we need to do another show for that.
Yeah. Well, that's wow. Like we've never ran into skunk before during a home inspection, so that's definitely.
I didn't get sprayed. Good. Thank God.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's crazy. And so was it the doors were just open, and that's how it got in, or?
Well, they had put a board up. Okay. They were trying to keep it in there, right? And I just went around the board, and I was like, oh, that's the skunk. Yeah.
Somebody trying to play a prank on somebody?
No, it just got in.
Crazy.
It got in.
So did the skunk spray?
No, I was so afraid. But no, I didn't. I didn't get sprayed. But if you've ever been that close to a skunk, you were really worried about that.
And then if it does happen, like you're trying to explain on the disclosure, like how am I going to explain to my client that your new bathroom's just skunk smell, right?
But we laughed. I mean, the builder, we all laughed. He had to call you on the phone. He's like, I need somebody to come get a skunk.
That's crazy. That is crazy. All right, so that's a great story. I love that. We'll be right back with Chad. We're going to talk mortgage here in just a second. So we're going to take a short break. So check out the food from Meso Mayo, and we'll be right back. And we're back. So How to Buy a Home In podcast. We're focused on West Plano and just stinky story or potential stinky story there with Andrea. So now we're going to bring it over to Chad Stansell with Cardinal Financial. Tell us a little bit about yourself and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Andrea Miller, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
I'm so glad.
Sitting right here next to one of the top agents in West Plano, a consummate professional, and it's always been a pleasure working with her.
Yeah.
I'll pay you later.
So I mean it, and I have strong opinions about realtors because I've dealt with them now for 15 years.
Okay.
Got into the business. I did my first equity loan in 2004, and before that was reading credit as when I was in college. Even it's Citigroup 25 years ago. So loved the business, got into the business, and really enjoyed watching the consumer grow their net worth. It's been a true pleasure experiencing that alongside of the customer. The freedom that can be achieved through owning real estate. We're in the greatest country in the world, and there's opportunity there. And I saw an opportunity for people to really expound on the freedoms that they're given the opportunities to have, is financial freedom, personal freedom, the comfort of having your own home. And it's been an absolute pleasure helping people achieve home ownership over all these years. Yeah.
So I have to ask, like, well, number one is the repeat client. What's the most times you've had a repeat?
I have a 5-timer club.
Wow.
So
impressive.
Absolutely. And the repeat clients, that's just a testament to good relationships.
Yeah.
For sure.
You treat those people well, and I make their life easier.
Yeah.
And they make my life easier.
Yeah.
So the repeat clients are the secret sauce in our business. So and so's daughter or son or cousin or
I worked with him. Go see him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're vetted out of the gate.
Yeah.
And boy, is it nice to have those relationships.
So I have to ask, like, and I'm sure that you maybe get this, and I don't want to discredit like a big box bank, but how often do you have that, that you're dealing with the buyer, they come to you and they say, hey, we got pre-qualified from unknown name because they're not worth the plug, but you know that they're a big national bank and they're a pain in the butt to deal with, and you say,
No.
hey, how about you go see my boy Chad over here, and we get you a pre-qual letter from
I think because so many people think, oh, I bank here, right? So I bank here, I'm going to get my home loan here, but they don't realize that that's not their expertise, right?
Yeah.
And so we do it a little bit more firm, like, no, you can't use them in this market. I mean, you can, but your odds of going under contract are really tough.
It's tough. So,
and then we refer our partner.
Yeah. So bringing it back, and you have that, big. I don't know what percentage of people do you have that come from a big box bank?
I think it's common now for the consumer to shop around a little bit, and that's encouraged. Everyone should be informed and know what they're getting into, so don't discourage that at all. But to your point, the fact that mortgage bankers like me exist is really a testament to the failure on the banking industry side, right? One could argue the same for the United States Postal Service. Someone comes to my house every day with mail. Why do we need FedEx? Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's common. What I've found is the difference maker is the relationships. You get to know these people. You answer your phone on a Saturday night, or respond to a text on Sunday morning or after hours. And
real estate never stops.
That's right. That's right. And so just tell someone, it's going to be 3 days and then we'll get back to you, that sort of thing. It's just, it's not okay in an environment that requires quick responsiveness.
Yeah. You have to have the plumber's mentality. Like, I need you now.
Yeah.
Like, there's something wrong now.
When you need a plumber, you need a plumber now.
I need a plumber now. So what's, like, let's just in general, we'll kind of talk about the status of the market, here. But what's the biggest myth about, people going through the home buying process? So for a new first-time home buyer, do they have to have 20% down? Do they, like, what? Sure. And what, like, credit score? Because everybody gets freaked out about credit score. So, like, what's your window there?
You bet. Absolutely. And that's, thank you for asking, Clayton. That there's when the first-time home buyer comes to me, more often than not, their eyes are the size of saucers, and they're scared to death, right? And I just want to tell everybody listening that it is not an intimidating process, and that you're coming to a friend, a confidant, a colleague that's going to help you. An advocate, really, more than anything. So it's one of those things where let's talk about it. Let's dive into your income. Let's dive into your assets. Let's dive into your credit and really figure out what's best for you. Yeah. And so even to answer your question, Cardinal Financial sells loans directly to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, also Ginnie Mae, which is who buys most of your government stuff, like FHA loans. Right. And that allows us to go down to a 550 credit score currently, which is arguably a low credit score, right? So what we really enjoy about that piece is we don't always have to go into being the credit advisors, because ultimately we're mortgage bankers, and I want to help you buy a house.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want to spend a lot of time and energy and resources on your credit.
Right.
Now, we have the experience. I've personally reviewed over 10,000 credit reports in my career, so I've seen a credit report or two.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you don't really want to talk about your credit. Let's talk about the house that you want to buy.
Right.
And so the 550 makes that available for people. Where there's motivation, we can find a way.
Yeah.
If somebody wants to buy a house, we will help them get a house.
And I'm assuming you probably have, if somebody is around that 550 or dancing there, just like she surrounds herself with a team of people, you probably also have like some credit repair, some people to like go through and hey, let's go down this path for a little bit, and then let's kind of boost this up here, and then that's going to put you in a better spot.
We do. We have rapid rescore simulators.
Okay.
That are complex algorithms that are made simple.
Okay.
Where we type in, hey, I need 10 points. And it'll spit out with a 92% likelihood Clayton's going to hit the 550 by doing X, Y, and Z.
Wow.
Okay.
So
Nice.
we'll
Cool.
play there. And then if it's a more of a severe case that requires a kind of a next level expertise, you bet I have affiliates and vendors that I trust to really do some of the deep dive, hard work stuff that may take a little bit of time. Again, comes back to if someone really wants to buy a house, we can get you on
What
that
do you
track,
want?
and
Yeah.
I'll ride that train with you as long as you want to ride it. So
speaking of that, what trends and strategies do you see currently happening with this market and interest rates? And just today, as of this moment, we're here for almost into February 1st to March of 2023. Interest rates are
So I'll not quote
today's
my
rate.
rates. I'll quote a national
Okay.
rate today. Right now, nationally, charging 1 point. 6.875 is sort of the standard 30-year
Okay.
fixed mortgage today.
Yep.
You can turn on CNBC and it scrolls, and you'll see that generally means 1 point. So 1 point is equal to 1 percentage point of the loan amount. So if it's a
Okay.
$500,000 loan, 1 point would be $5,000.
Okay.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So I will say that in the last 6 months to a year, as rates have gone up, the Fed, as we all know, has continuously increased interest rates.
You mean they wanted to stop real estate? They're saying, like the Fed said, we're going to stop real estate.
They did, and the rest of the market. That they felt that the market was running away with itself, and
Yeah.
prices were getting out of control, and they wanted to bring prices down.
Yeah.
It's that simple. And the consumer has just in the past few months cried uncle.
Yep.
Said the rates have gotten so high
Yep.
that the payments have gotten so painful that I'm going to opt out.
Yep.
I'm going to choose not to buy that item. I'm going to
Yep.
choose not to pay that extra little bit because it cost me that extra $300, $400, $500, $600.
Yep.
Okay. So where in years past, for the last 15 years, here in North Texas, sellers were not having to give seller credits, and buyers were not asking for seller
Right.
credits. We could work deals out without getting seller paid closing costs. Fast forward to this current market, we have a more balanced market. So buyers can really get quote unquote good deals.
Yeah.
And sellers are willing to a lot of times work a deal out with the buyer because there's maybe not 25 buyers behind them.
Right.
Maybe one or two.
Right.
So there's more incentive.
It's not like it was at all. So speaking of, what advice can you give clients while sort of going through this process? So like today's current, like where we're at now, because 2 years ago it was like, hey, you're going to need an extra 30 grand or 50 grand, and it was terrible to have that conversation with somebody. It's like, go find me this and then we can talk. Right. But now it's like,
Sure. Well, first of all, on the advice thing, just find a realtor that's a professional that knows what they're doing, and then find yourself a lender who's going to dive in there with you, put themselves in your shoes,
Right.
and figure it out with you. And you can sense that. There's a certain authenticity when you speak to somebody where you know if they care about you, and you can sense that.
Yep.
That's what I'm all about. Let
Yep.
me put myself in your shoes and say, if I was you, what would I want?
Right.
What would be best for me?
Yeah.
So as far as strategies and advice in today's market, and markets change constantly, they're always changing. Something that I've seen seen is become very normal is buyers are negotiating for the seller to cover some closing costs,
Okay.
so they can buy the rate down.
Oh, okay.
I was looking at a deal just this morning. It was a non-owner occupied property, a rental property in Houston. Borrower was putting 20% down. No points was pushing 8%.
Oh, wow.
We spent a couple points. We got him 6.99, which is
Yeah.
a good rate
Yeah.
on a non-owner occupied property.
Right.
So save the guy the $200 and something a month.
A month, yeah.
Right. So you look at the money that you spend to buy the rate down. You divide that by the monthly savings. That gives you a break even. That's one of those calculations I'll look at with the customer to figure out where does it make sense. But if they can get the seller to give some closing costs,
And you
they
can,
can
in
really
some cases.
help bring
Yeah.
that payment down,
Okay.
and it makes it a little bit easier to spend the money on the house. So that's
Awesome.
that's what I'm seeing is most common right now.
Great
is
advice.
buying the rates down. Yeah.
Great advice. So I also have to ask, like, what is your craziest story in real estate?
Can you beat the skunk?
So, so I've got a few wild ones. Most recently, I had a client show up with a suitcase of cash in their trunk
What?
that they had been trying to hide their income and from the ex-spouse.
Oh my
Are you
gosh.
I absolutely. Wow. But I'll give a word of caution for realtors. This is a little more of a serious one, but this is my most wild one, no doubt. A realtor was showing, had a client call. Picked her out the pamphlet and said, I want to see houses. I'm going to be a cash buyer. So I don't need to be vetted by a lender. And I want to buy now. So I want to see only vacant homes or ready to go homes. And I really would like to have a basement.
Oh, well, there's not
Okay.
very many basements
Are
in
you getting
Texas.
ding, 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 ding,
Yeah.
ding? This is a true story,
Wow.
too.
Oh my gosh.
She's at the house,
Oh, no.
walking down in the basement.
Oh, my gosh.
Gets a phone call from her husband, who's also a realtor. And the FBI had chased this man down, and he had been on a multi-state tour visiting houses and doing unscrupulous things with
Clearly.
people. And this girl obviously ran out of the house
Yeah.
and was greeted
Lucky.
by a half a dozen FBI cars, and
Wow.
this guy was put into the back, and they found all kinds of things like ropes and handcuffs and things in the back of his
Oh
car.
my gosh.
So that is a wild. I've got all kinds of real estate stories, but there are some things to. And Andrea, you've probably done safety classes about when to show and
yeah.
when to make sure you're going
Ask
with
for
somebody.
driver's license. Yeah.
Yeah,
All that. Yeah.
open houses, that kind of thing. So not to bring the room down, but that
But
was definitely a
that's
wild
nuts.
story.
That's pretty wild.
Wow. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we've had some federal people get involved in that's like crazy. All right.
Real stuff.
Chad Stansell, Cardinal Financial. How can we reach you?
You can reach me at chadhomeloans.com or my cell phone. But
And we're going to flash the number right down here on the
yeah.
screen, like right down here. So there you have it.
Chad Stansell, and thank you for having me.
Yes, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. And wow, crazy stories. I always have to ask because you never know
You
what
never know.
you never know what you're gonna hear. So
right.
we're gonna take a little break. We'll be right back. Here's some more food from Meso Mayo. And next we're gonna talk plumbing. So with Daniel. All right, we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So now we get to have, like, I'm an inspector, so boots on the ground. I appreciate my boots on the ground guys because we can kind of share war stories, and I know you guys can share war stories back and forth. But man, plumbers get to see some of the
everything.
most interesting things that are out there. So Daniel Goforth with DrainBusters, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
And thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about yourself. How long have you been in the industry?
I've been doing plumbing since early 2000.
Okay.
Kind of got into the business as a family business. My uncles are actually plumbers. I have one uncle that actually worked for the city of Richardson in the water department, and that's kind of how he got started into the plumbing industry, working in residential plumbing.
Okay.
And basically kind of came on board with him in early in the 2000s, 2001, 2002.
Okay.
And then have kind of just kept up with that since. did a couple other things, but have worked with him on and off since early 2000.
All right. And what's the best part about working for DrainBusters?
Being a family plumbing company, we're able to really get to our clients a lot faster than some of the bigger outfits.
Yeah.
We're able to set up our schedules a lot better. So if we want to say, hey, today's great 75-degree weather day, we want to go golfing, we can just set up our calls to where we have a golf day a little bit easier than some of the larger outfits.
Yeah.
Just today, we actually had a customer call up, at 10:30 and was like, hey, I have water leaking. I need this fixed. Can I get it fixed?
Yeah.
I was actually able to go out today, fix that, and get them taken care of today.
Yeah.
As opposed to, hey, 3 days, and we'll get back to you, and in the meantime, you're leaking water.
Yeah,
consistently
and
for
it's
those
just
3 days.
making more damage
Absolutely.
and creating a bigger mess and
You
stuff.
got it.
So kind of just staying on that subject, the AC guy makes all his money in the summertime. So does that mean you make all your money kind of in the freezing?
We actually stay pretty consistent throughout. Most of the time, when we see our lulls are usually in heavy vacation times. So if somebody is looking to do a larger project, that's usually going to come at a time when they're staying at home. So we almost see a school season where we will stay decently steady or more steady during school times. And during those summer times when people are taking their vacations, they're not in their homes. So we don't tend to see as much. As well as for our Texas summers, we get really, really hot. So a lot of the times it's during the fall and during the wet season where we start to see the foundations move, and those foundations shifting can definitely cause problems.
Yes, they do. So out of just, drinking water supplies, sewer pipes, and gas lines, what would you say is the most expensive whammy?
The most expensive one is usually the gas lines.
Okay.
Just with some of the safety standards and all of the codes that you have to go through to make sure that those are 100% the way that they need to be. Around here it's Atmos, but pretty much whoever your local gas company is going to have certain rules that you're going to have to follow to get those things done.
Right.
To make sure that you're up to standard with those. That requires a little bit more training. There's a lot more danger. A water line and a sewer line can definitely cause damage to your house.
Yeah.
However, for those of us who've been in the area, we have had some properties, unfortunately, that had the worst case scenario of gas leak for X amount of time.
Yep.
That now, unfortunately, causes a major news story, and that's what we don't want in this industry.
In Plano area.
It was right here.
Yeah, it was
right
not
here.
far from where we were, where a house just boom.
We heard it.
Yeah, from what I heard about that, the houses around that also got blown off their foundation or slab. So it's kind of like when a tornado hits and if everything shifts, all those sewer lines that are coming up through, they just all break.
Absolutely.
And so it's like, what a nightmare.
Yeah, we could feel it. It shook our windows.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary
crazy.
stuff.
Crazy.
So what's the oldest house you've ever worked on?
My aunt and uncle actually have a house over in West Dallas by Love Field.
Okay.
That was built in 1905.
Okay.
And so I've actually done some work for them in that house. Different. Definitely different with some of the plumbing that they've done. There's a scattering of these houses throughout Dallas that have the old plank walls. So they have drywall over an actual 3/8 lap siding wall.
Siding, yeah.
And a lot of these homeowners don't know that. So they're like, hey, I want to go in and I want to change my shower from a tub to a single handle. And you go in there and you start stabbing with your drywall knife and you're like, man, my stud finder just seems to not be finding studs.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all stud.
It's all stud.
It's all wood.
Down.
And it is not, it's not like a little 1/4-inch plywood in there. It's 7/8 thick.
It's major problems, major renovations.
Yeah, hey guys, now that price that we quoted you, unfortunately, it's gonna go up a little bit because and now you're looking at a lot more into this renovation project.
Yeah.
But just not something that you would see. I mean, look, hey, it looks like drywall to me from here. So, but yeah, I think 1905 is when that house was built.
Oh,
so
wow.
definitely old and definitely not a lot of room to crawl under, especially for a big guy like me.
Have you? I always like this. I don't know why, but the big guys are always plumbers. And I feel like they have the little apprentice that they're like, you're gonna go down there today, and you're gonna. I know how that goes. My father-in-law's
absolutely.
going through the same thing right now. He's like, hey, I got a plumbing leak over in this toilet. Nobody can get back there to it. And I was like, call this guy. He's got a little guy like, to go along with him. Is there?
You
Do you
got
ever
it.
run across any Orangeburg, sort of that old school?
There is still some of that, not too far from here in the city of Richardson. So
Okay.
basically like almost like a roofing felt.
Yeah, it's like tar paper.
It's
with
basically rolled up,
sawdust that's just rolled up and-
dipped in tar, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah. So, and over the course of time, it will tend to compress, almost
Yep.
like in a C
It
shape.
just kind of crushes.
And yeah, so
Yeah.
we've done sewer relays looking into that pipe, definitely in the city of Richardson. Again, since my uncle worked for the city there, then it's definitely
Yeah.
something that we would see from time to time. So we definitely do see that.
So something that we inspectors always call out, and we just know that it's going to be bad, and that's the cast iron piping in a house.
Sure.
And we're going to say, hey, it's got a 25-year shelf life, and if it's a slab house and it's cast iron, we're going to recommend some sewer tests. So tell us a little bit more about like what's involved in that. How do you approach that?
So a hydrostatic sewer test is where we put a test ball into the sewer line and fill it up with water to basically test it under normal hydrostatic pressure. The reason that we do that is a norm. A sewer line should never hold water other than your P-traps. So when we do that, it's going to put it under more pressure than it would normally be under at any other point in time.
Right.
And basically we fill it up and it either holds water or it starts to leak. But the reason and that's basically a hydrostatic test. So you will need what we call a set of cleanouts in order for
Right.
us to do that. But you really want to get that done because if your sewer line is leaking, it may not plug up. It may not ever give you an indication that something is wrong until you're so far down the rabbit hole of repair
Yeah.
that now you're doing some really
Major
extensive
Major.
stuff.
So, and I'm sure you know, I'm about to flip it over to you and say, there's a seller's disclosure that has to be filled out that
Yes.
says they agree to this
Yes.
hydrostatic
Yes.
test. And so just, if you
Well,
want to,
first of all, I hate the name of that form because it freaks people
we just
out.
call it a sewer leak test.
I wish they would change it. We've been trying to get Truck to change it, but we have been through more plumbing issues probably in the last 6 deals than in a long time. And I think it's because just the age of the houses, right? And just the situations, and you just don't know what you're going to run into.
Yeah.
But yes, I would say if we're representing the buyer and the house has cast iron, we are definitely doing that.
Yeah.
For sure. Right.
Yeah.
And no doubt about it.
And like 2-3 years ago, people are like, I'll spend $50,000 over, and we come in and we say, hey, there's water, there's a green line out in your yard.
Yeah.
You can see that this
Yeah.
thing leaks, and they're like, we don't care. We want the house. There's 40 other people that were bidding on it, and we got it, and we don't care what the problem is, and we just want the house.
And that's the unfortunate thing that happened.
And then they move in,
Right.
and then it's like, man, then they get upset
expensive.
because they're like, man, this was expensive. How
Yeah.
come we didn't deal with this?
You got to have a
during
good
the-
agent.
Yeah, during
Exactly.
the option periods because they didn't
Right.
have a good
They
agent.
didn't
The
have a
agent
good
was just
agent.
like, okay, you want to
Yeah.
get in, I want to get paid. Let's just
Yeah.
make this fast.
Yeah.
But I want agents, or I want clients for life. So I want
Yeah.
my agent to have my back
Yeah.
forever
If
and
it's
ever.
that
I wanna
agent
make
has
sure-
cast iron and we're the buyers, like we definitely say, and we call him all the time and say,
Yeah.
hey, you got to come out here and do this. It doesn't even matter about the inspection report. We're going to have it done anyway.
Yeah,
So
if it's cast iron.
Yeah.
So
Yep,
and
absolutely.
like I've got friends that sit on the plumbing board, and they said, Clayton, can you guys, the inspectors, can you stop calling it hydrostatic test and just call it a sewer leak
Yes.
test like the engineer does? And so we're like, yeah.
Sure.
And he was explaining, he's like, well, hydrostatic, right? Hydro means water, staticos, Greek, means to stand. So it's not like we're pressurizing it. We're just filling it up with water and seeing if it holds water.
Seeing
or
if it
not.
holds
It's a
water.
real-
You
It's
got
a
it.
real basic test.
But
So-
people Google it. And if you Google it, then everybody's like, oh, it's going to put pressure on my pipes. And then
Yeah.
on the form, through Trek, you have to put liability,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
if we're representing the seller, we're like, yeah, we're taking no liability on what you want to do.
Right.
If we're the buyer, we're like,
pushing
so
it over there. It's
it's
a tug of war kind
it's
of
a
match
tug of
that's going
war.
back and forth.
Yeah.
Is there any case though? Because I've heard cases where maybe there's not cleanouts present and you have to remove a toilet, or you've got to do something different to do that test.
You can, but anytime that you do that, what you're running the risk of is you're running the risk that you're not testing every spot of the sewer line.
Right.
So if you're not going from an exterior spot, if you're going from somewhere interior, you're just never sure. There's no
There's a section you could miss.
Exactly. You never know how they laid out their pipes. And in some of the jobs that we do, we get under there and go, wow, they did it this way?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, functionality is the most important part of that. But again, would we have ever laid it that way? I don't know that anybody would ever thought to do it that way. So if you're going from anywhere interior, you're running the risk that you may be missing part of that system. And Murphy's Law dictates that that's the part of the system that's the one. That's the part of the system that you missed that now suddenly you got an issue with.
So I know that whenever you have cameras involved, so like Trek just started allowing inspectors to use cameras, and so there's some agents that are like, do you use a camera? And I just won't do it because I'm not a plumber, I'm not the expert. And I've seen that inspector that, you know, went out and bought a camera and then the head of it broke off because he didn't know what he was doing. And then now he just clogged up somebody's system and he had to call a plumber out anyway to come fix it. And so it's like, I'm not gonna throw myself on that grenade. Like I'm gonna let the plumber like do that.
Stay in your lane.
Yes, I'm gonna stay in my lane and do the deal. Chad, you had a question?
Yeah, Daniel, I was curious. This being as expensive as it is, Clayton, you mentioned it's expensive. Let's say it's a standard size house, and you have cast iron pipes, and they need to be replaced. What does that look like? Is it tunneling? Do they go through the floors? What's a typical amount of footage of cast iron pipes that gets replaced? Is it 100 feet?
So we do tunneling. We have a crew that'll come out and you know, normally they'll have one hole at the front, usually by the cleanouts, or we're gonna have somewhere where we have a point of reference that in some of the older houses that may just be the actual vents that run through the roof for your plumbing, where we'll start there, and then it's once we find a pipe, then it's just kind of follow the pipe. On a typical size house, you're probably looking around 100 foot of cast iron. You know, if you're looking at a 2-bathroom house with a kitchen, washing machine, on average, depending upon the amount and how they're, you know, how far out, how spread out they are, how close together the bathrooms are, you're probably looking, you know, $30,000-$40,000 worth of work, you know, turnkey, you know, everything, you know, digging pipes, putting them in, that sort of stuff. So it's definitely a significant investment that you're looking at doing for that. And that's on, you know, on an average 100 foot. You know, some of these houses, larger houses, or more spread out. The more spread out you are, the more sewer line that you have. And so, yeah, it can definitely get up there.
Sounds like it's worth looking at.
It's one of the things that we know that's just the biggest ticking time bomb that there ever was. And it's also, you know, the most expensive because you're either punching through them floors or you're having to tunnel and you got to figure out what kind of flooring that they have in there. I could talk with you forever and ever. Tell me your craziest story.
We see a lot of stuff, but kind of like Chad's story, this will be kind of one where the looks of it can change in a hurry. It was literally just a simple hose bib on the exterior of a house that was leaking. Okay. And we were out there for the selling agent. Right. He's like, hey, you know, what does that look like? Oh, that looks like a hose bib. It's leaking. Yeah, it's old. You need to replace it. Sure. How simple is that? Well, you know, you're selling the house. You've just done renovations to the house, remodeled these 2 bathrooms. The easiest way is to go through the exterior siding. We just cut a hole through the exterior siding. We find the pipe. We do whatever we need to do to get this hose bib on there. Yeah, simple. Yeah. And then we cut a hole in the siding, and the faucet is literally jammed between 2 studs that are 2 inches apart. And the copper is running right through the middle.
Oh, boy.
I don't have any room to work. I don't have any room to tie anything. I can't touch. I've got nothing. So now I got to go inside and I got to find this pipe. Oh, it's underneath the vanity. So now I've got to access this pipe. Yeah. This is a brand new renovated bathroom.
Oh, boy.
With a vanity. Oh, boy. With a brand new sink on there.
It's all gotta come out.
So now I've got to pull the vanity off. In order to access the vanity screws, I got to pull the sink off the vanity. Oh, of course, you put a backsplash and a side splash and a full vanity mirror right on top of the backsplash. Mirror's got to come off. Backsplash got to come off. Top's got to come off. Painful. The vanity's got to come off.
Oh, wow.
And then you find out they actually replumbed the kitchen from the top down and left that part alone, not realizing that it was going to cause a problem and be the last hurdle in getting their clothes.
Oh, my God.
So, yeah, hey, this normal job that may be around $300. Oh, well, guess what? You know, I'm a plumber. Luckily, I've had some experience doing some remodel work, so I was able to do the entire job for this particular person.
Right.
But you get a plumber who's, hey, dude, I don't know how to take a mirror off the wall. Plus, I don't want to put myself in that liability. Now you got to get somebody else.
Oh, my gosh.
How quickly can they get out there? Plus,
That's
you got to put it all back together.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, from a from the book by its cover, hey, this should be a pretty simple gig.
Yeah.
You just never know what you're going to find in that. And so
gosh.
now this job turns into, hey, I'm going to be there all day.
All day, and then probably then some.
Well,
'cause you're trying to patch
sure.
and paint, replace
this
things.
would happen to be in a rural property, so now it's
Now you gotta drive.
Now I've got to drive to get parts because
dang
I've
it.
got parts
Yeah.
set up for. Hey, this should be nice and accessible.
So my craziest story has to do with the sewer line, and I usually don't tell my crazy story. But one of the craziest stories, $3 million house, Preston Hollow, really high end neighborhood, beautiful, and this was 12 years ago. The seller didn't really want to sell, but he had already signed all the paperwork, and he was kind of cray cray, little nuts. Sold the house, agreed to sell. Well, then he just didn't want to leave, so they had to evict him from this place, and he was so mad that he got evicted that he took socks and Quickcrete and he put it down all the drains and the toilets, and he completely put concrete down all the sewer pipes. And so this gal calls me for another inspection, and I'm like, that last house was you. Like, that was beautiful. She's like, well, let me tell you. And she tells me that story.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, well, did you sue him? Did you take? She's like, if I would have taken him to court, it would have lasted a year. I said, well, how much was it to do the sewer line? She said it was $80,000.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And she's like,
Very
I'd
spiteful.
rather just like pay it. And she just relisted the house and sold it for more than, that, and made her money back. But still, she's
crazy.
like, with how crazy that guy was, she just didn't even want to live in the
Yeah.
house, didn't want to stay in the house, and like to go through that. But when she threw out 80 grand, I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Crazy. All right. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Good things. We'll be right back. Meso Mayo, check out the food, and we're going to talk about West Plano next. So we're going to dive really deep into the neighborhood. So we'll be right back. All right, and we're back. So now we're going to dive into West Plano specifically, and we have the expert because she built a house here in 1996. And so if you're looking for the real estate agent that knows the neighborhood, I mean, come on, like
I know it.
96, you know it, right?
I know it.
So it's there. So Wentworth Estates is sort of like the area that you like too, but tell me about the neighborhoods that surround it, and tell me a little bit about it.
So here in West Plano, it's 75093. Everybody's pretty familiar with that zip code. So it's Park and Preston area. So we live in actually Wentworth Estates, which is about 3 blocks that way.
Okay.
That's why we always eat here. It's my favorite restaurant. You'll find me here every Friday night. But there's different neighborhoods here. So when we built our house here in 96, we chose it because you've probably heard of a very nice neighborhood called Willow Bend. Well,
Yes.
it's just right down the road.
Okay.
So Willow Bend is a very high-end neighborhood. There's Lakeside, which is a very nice neighborhood. Wentworth Estates, Reflections of Shepherd Glen. I could go on and on
Okay.
and on, but
Cool.
it's just a great area.
And then tell me, like, what are the big annual events that happen here where everybody just
Yeah.
doesn't forget about it? They always mark their calendar because they're not going to
Right.
miss it.
So there's at Willow Bend, Willow Bend Country Club, they do a 4th of July fireworks. You can see it from everywhere here.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's the Plano Annual Balloon Festival that everybody
Ooh,
goes to.
the
So
Balloon
it's very
Fest.
fun. Very,
Yeah.
very fun. Yeah.
Where do they launch the balloons from?
It's Oak Point.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It's very good.
Neato.
Very fun.
And then tell me about schools. So size of schools and ratings, or
So the ratings for West Plano, I mean, most people, when they say they're going to move from another state, the first place they normally look at is Plano because
Yeah.
of the schools, West Plano schools. We're known for our schools here, great teachers, not huge schools. We're not like a lot of the other cities that'll have 1 or 2 high schools.
Right.
We have several,
Okay.
highly ranked, and I know because my kids went there. So, yeah, it's just a great area. I mean, you have shopping here. I mean, at Park and Preston, you have tons of restaurants like Meso Mayo. You have Trader Joe's, which for anybody coming from California loves
Yep.
Trader Joe's.
Yep.
Whole Foods, Crate and Barrel. Like, I don't leave my little.
this little area.
I don't leave it. No, I don't need to.
Talk to me about sort of the parks and biking trails or walking trails. What kind of things are?
Yeah, so there's quite a few of those. There's the name is gonna escape me. I can't think of the park.
I'm gonna flash it down
yeah.
below because she's gonna remember after we're done. It's this one right here.
Everybody goes there. I can't think of the name of it. There's tons of parks here.
There's bike riding. There's bike riding trails all around here.
Yeah.
Arbor Hills.
Arbor Hills, that's it.
Okay.
I haven't had my drink yet.
That's
I'm
okay.
kidding.
Yeah.
Arbor Hills, that's it.
It's a good one.
It's great. It's a very good park.
And then
but there's
tell
tons
me
of parks.
tell me about kind of the size of the house and then the price of the houses in Wynwood Estates and then
Yeah.
Willow Bend and sort of the surrounding areas. Like,
Yeah.
give me the lows and the highs of
Okay.
the price range.
So in Wentworth Estates, it's a really great price neighborhood, which is why most people like to move in there because the homes range. Most of everything in Plano was built in the 90s, like
Okay.
between 90 and 96. So
Okay.
they're older homes, right? But
Right.
most people buy here because of location, right, and the schools. So they
Okay.
know that they're going to be in the 90s homes. In Wentworth Estates, the average size of a house is between 33 and about 4,200 square feet.
Okay.
Price range anywhere from 700 to 850.
Okay.
And then once you move into Willow Bend, obviously that's the higher price points. You're in the millions of dollars there. And then the same thing Lakeside on Preston, right? Those are pretty much in the 900s to
same era built in Willow Bend in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most
same
everything
square
in-
footage ish.
No, much bigger square
Okay.
footages. Very like estates, very
Okay.
large.
You get into like
Yeah.
really big houses.
Right. Really, like 5,000 square feet is
Okay.
pretty small.
That's pretty small over
That's
there.
pretty small over there. Right.
So,
But
what
there's
are some,
other neighborhoods. There's Deerfield, like that's where everybody goes to the Christmas lights, right?
Yep,
Like
absolutely.
everybody's been. Anybody, you don't even have to live in Plano to know about that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, where's Christmas lights? You got to go to Deerfield. So
Yeah.
great.
So from the inspector standpoint, things that we're looking for the 90s, and I'll probably just piggyback off Daniel here, but that's kind of when the CSST first started to come out. So it was
Mm-hmm.
that corrugated stainless steel gas lines that you were talking about earlier. So you're probably going to get a little bit of
Yeah.
that. Some of the building materials were, not so good. You probably had some little bit of Chinese drywall, if I remember right, kind of in
Mm-hmm.
the area. So, but it's North Texas and foundation issues. And so it's really, if you're taking on a listing or you got buyers and you're looking, that's one of those things that you're really paying attention to your drainage to make sure that the
Sure.
house hasn't moved, that
Right.
you don't have any foundation movement, because you have a little bit of foundation movement and then you got to call him because now you've got,
Right.
plumbing separations and that kind of fun stuff. So that's how we look, the older it is, sort of the
Right.
more we're like,
Yeah.
let's just pay attention. It's like one of those things that you're going to make sure
Yeah.
that you're checking off all those check boxes to
Always.
call him to get
Always.
that testing done.
I think that's one of the keys for Andrea is being the local pro and the market expert here. She's going to be able to identify what's normal, what's not normal, and what to look for.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't take anybody through a house and say, oh, look at this lovely microwave, right? Like I'm looking at what does the brick look like outside,
Yeah.
right? Is there been movement in the house, right?
Yeah.
That's what you need a good realtor for.
Yeah, and you got a balloon festival. I mean, come on, that's awesome.
So fun. Come join us.
Anything else you want to say about the neighborhood? If not, we're gonna wrap it up.
I love West Plano. I've lived here forever. I don't think I would live anywhere else. There's no need to. Sorry, guys. I know you don't live here, but it's fabulous. Come join me.
All right, well, that's gonna wrap up our show. Clayton Bailey, How to Buy a Home in West Plano, Texas. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
bet.
Thank you.
Thank
Enjoy
you.
it.
Yeah.
We'll see ya.